Ladies and gentlemen, it's now time for us to have the last keynote speech on the topic vulnerability assessment. The speaker has managed critical infrastructures containing more than 800 plus servers. He has managed 120 plus web trading portals for New York Stock Exchange, performed large scale IT migrations from designing to implementation. He has 24 plus years of IT experience, in which 12 plus years on Wall Street as VP Global Head. With a big round of applause, may I please welcome CEO Valency Networks, Mr. Prashant Phatak, to present on the topic vulnerability assessment.
Good afternoon. Am I audible? Is this really afternoon? Or maybe evening? Okay, evening. Sorry, good evening. First of all, before I proceed, it's a quick vote of thanks to Step In Forum to let me speak here. So Step In, thank you very much, especially to two of my friends, Amit Vaidya, I'm not sure if he is there at the moment, and Sudhir Patil. Sudhir, you may want to raise your hand. So thank you very much. My name is Prashant Phatak, and I'm the CEO of Valency Networks. Today, my topic is what you see here, vulnerability assessment. So I believe, I don't know how many of you were here for whole 2 days, how many just joined today. You come from QA testing, functional testing background. I had been doing that earlier in my life, but now my complete focus is cybersecurity. So there are chances some of you may feel a little disconnected. I'll try my best to address all of your questions if you would have. Before I proceed, bit of a disclaimer. So no company names will be mentioned because I'll be talking about few interesting cases in cybersecurity hacking. And you'll see few facts and figures. Those are based on multiple surveys out there, as well as our own vulnerability assessment, penetration testing results. So what you will see here is going to be a pretty realistic picture, which is happening out there in cybersecurity world. This doesn't work. Sorry, a little bit of a hiccup here. Okay. So quickly, the agenda is I'm going to introduce a little bit, which is already done. I may skip that, and I'm going to talk about what is happening out there in cybersecurity in terms of hackings that are happening. I'm pretty sure we all read that in the newspaper. I'm going to do my best to give a bit of a statistic so that you're aware of what is happening. And that sets the premise for what is the need for vulnerability assessment, of course. And then, what is vulnerability assessment? As a starter, quickly, for those who say do not know what is VA. I'm going to also try to differentiate between a vulnerability assessment and penetration testing. These two words are very, very commonly used in cybersecurity industry. Then how tools are used. I'm going to just mention few tools, followed by why those tools are not enough when it comes to cybersecurity hacking or ethical hacking or testing. And then what are the benefits and few stats, and whatever I may or may not address properly. I would appreciate a few questions to sum it up. Should not take more than 30 minutes. I know you guys are already tired. This is the last session, so I'll respect your time. But I would appreciate if you can just focus for these next at least 20 minutes. So quick poll. How many of you perform VAPT as a part of your job or profession? Can I have a show of hands? Wow. Okay. One. Thank you. At least one. Thank you. I felt better. How many of you were impacted or your organization by ransomware in past 2-3 months? None. Okay, that's a good news at least. How many of you know that Pokemon game? How many of you played Pokemon? Okay, that's better. And how many of you knew that Pokemon actually leaks your personal data? Excellent, very good. So that's a good awareness. This was just to make sure you're not sleepy, and I wanted to gauge what sort of audience I have here. Just quickly, don't focus on the rest of the stuff. The last thing, we have conducted 1,000 plus websites, cloud apps, mobile apps, IT networks, penetration testings. And what I'm going to present here is a sort of a gist of all that. As you know, we have 3 pillars of testing, needless to say: functional, security, and performance. A lot had been said in past 2 days. However, I'm going to just focus on the security aspects. So what is the need for vulnerability assessment? This is a hacker, so you're supposed to get a little bit scared. This hacker is not an ethical hacker like what I do as a part of my profession. This person is a bad person, and I'm sure all of you hear a lot of news about hackings. Why they hack? Let's get to the basics of it. That says the premise for why VA, vulnerability assessment, is important. So in mid-90s, even I remember those days, we used to have novel network and very primitive Windows network at our disposal. We used to write some script and just reboot some colleague's machine. We used to be happy about it. They were not happy about it for obvious reasons. They would do the same back to us. It was more of show off, more of an ego, and that was in mid-90s. Later, the game plan changed. As you can see, people started earning money, so they started writing viruses, trojans, etc. Currently, a lot of industrial espionage is happening. Even in Pune, things are not very good, that I can assure you. And cyber terrorism is actually at our doorstep. If you look at it carefully, the ransomware is nothing but snatching money and funding to some terrorist organization. So even though I have mentioned that as a future, it's not exactly future, it's already right there. Critical infrastructures, such as water treatment plants, petrochemical industries, and manufacturing companies, because of the whole IoT that is in, they are very susceptible, followed by banks, finance, followed by healthcare. I was very surprised to see healthcare. I was like, why? Then somebody told me, if somebody would get hands on patients' data, knowing their diseases and medicines, that becomes a great opportunity for insurance companies and drug manufacturers to use that information. So ideally, they should legitimately get that. Instead, they try to hack into some hospital and fetch the info. Believe it or not, this is happening very much in Pune and Mumbai. So this is a global view, realistic figures. The bars you see are for 2015 and 16. I would appreciate if you can just focus on India. So in 2015, we were at some point, and the number of attacks within India on IT infrastructure, websites, as well as banking mobile apps, they have increased a lot. This is pretty scary. And the global loss is what you can see. Most of the attacks come from China as well as India. So, sometimes I feel better. We are very techie people. We are everywhere in software industry all over the world. But it also means there is a part of evil person within us as well. So we attack others. So, we are not completely clean per se. Within India, official figures 13,000 plus is the number of registered incidences, which means in our country, everything is not like registered. So the actual number could be truly bigger than this. Right from mobile apps, web apps, everything gets hacked. Maharashtra and Karnataka, I believe because of Pune, Mumbai, Bangalore being IT hubs, are the most attacked or most hacked. And attempts are from over, abroad, Russia, Belgium, as well as from within the India. Now, coming to the basics, what is VA, vulnerability assessment, and PT is penetration testing. There is a distinct difference between these. We are going to look at it. So what is a VAPT anyway? What we do is basically we scan the IP address or application, we look for security flaws, we exploit those flaws, and we create a report at a high level. However, the difference is this. VA is specifically to find the loopholes and just enumerate to see which of those loopholes in a website, in an IP address, etc., which could eventually be hacked. Whereas a PT is performing an actual attack and also see whether it can, be digged in further. So PT is nothing but creating a proof of concept to prove that something can actually really be hacked. Which also tells us a VA part can be automated, whereas a PT part cannot be, and why? We are going to come to that in a second. Let's take a look at the tools. So these are very famous tools. Question, how many of you know the Qualys or Acuinetics? Can I see a show of hands? You do? That's it. Oh, you do, of course, yes. So Nmap is a very famous tool. It's there for past 15 years. It is used to hack into a firewall or scan a firewall, see ports, and try to deep dive into it. Nessus was open source. So all these tools are very interesting, but they do have one limitation. How tools work? So let's see that. Let's take example of some IP address. Some attacker is sitting outside. They may or may not use tools, by the way, but what they do is they connect to the IP address, they scan the ports for TCP and UDP, they map the services, whether it is a SMTP service or it is just a web service or what, followed by they find out vulnerabilities, of course, and then they report vulnerabilities. That's about it. When it comes to websites, it's about opening a browser, simulate a user, run the hacking scripts, and again, the rest of the charade is same. They capture output, find vulnerability, and report it. These are the typical problems. In a network, there are stray ports, so ports which are not supposed to be open, but unfortunately are open. And the service which is underlying could actually be vulnerable and could be hacked. Web apps, I'm sure you must have heard a lot while doing even the functional testing, things such as SQL injection and session hijacking. Again, quick show of hands. While doing functional testing, how many of you actually care about SQL injection as well? Is it made you there? Okay, only one. Okay, interesting. And in mobile apps, data leakages and authentication bypass, that you just bypass the user ID password authentication, are very common. Let's get to the basics. So what is the fact? The fact is each website, cloud app, mobile app, it is way different than other. Even though you see the same login screen, the way the login functionality is implemented. After that, the application may be making a call to some backend database. How that database call is made, all those things are going to be different because each website is obviously different. And because of that, each vulnerability that emerges out of that whole design is also different. It's a fact. What is the requirement from the VAPT? That to analyze the vulnerability based on the request and response. So this is the basic fundamental, and this is where things start changing. Also, you should be able to create a methodology to further deep dive. So you should not just run some tool and say, this is the report and this is your security posture. That is unfortunately not enough. And the fundamental, which boils down because of this, VAPT is a cascaded intelligence, which means a human interaction is imperative. You cannot get away from that. Also, it needs a lot of in-depth knowledge and experience. So how exactly manual testing works? Typically, an ethical hacker, like what we do in our company, we enumerate a vulnerability, then we perform attack, analyze results, everything is very typical, but then we perform similar or different attack based on the previous finding. And this is where the cascaded intelligence comes into the picture. Then we assimilate all the results and we create another attack. Once everything is done, we also try to deep dive, see Is there anything beyond that? And all this is happening for all the available vulnerabilities. If you look at line number 4, perform similar or different attacks, this is something which can only a human being do, a tool cannot. Let's take examples. Now in the examples, you will see bit of technical stuff. I have tried my best to avoid. If something gets confusing, we'll move on. Don't worry about it. So if you take any banking application, you log in and you're transferring money. That application is a web-based application. What you do is you select the amount of, you put in amount of money, you select the account to which it is supposed to be transferred to, and you click a button. This activity requires a form, as you know, and each of those forms, it has to be highly, highly securely protected. If not done, there is a problem called as CSRF, cross-site request forgery, by which an attacker can do the same transaction without you knowing about it and have a bogus form submitted, by which maybe the attacker can steal your money and put in their pocket. It's possible. When we do penetration testing for banking applications, unfortunately for many cooperative banks, we do see this sort of attack, and that's where we try to give them with a consulting. Now what happens is, tools check whether the CSRF, that token is required, is it available or not, and that's about it. Tool cannot go beyond that. What is expected is tools fail to check if it is being validated, meaning whether token is there or not doesn't help much. Whether that token is actually validated by server to make sure it is not coming from attacker, it is really coming from the legitimate user. All those things, unfortunately, a tool cannot do. 80% of banking applications, they do have this problem because of bad programming practices. Just to be very clear, the one that is highlighted is the CSRF token, and that value, whether it is present or not, that's all a tool is basically checking, which is insufficient. When you log into a website, there is something called as a session. Now, what happens is, a tool is capable of checking whether you logged in or you're logged out based on the session presence, and that's it. To simulate a man-in-the-middle attack, where if you are trying to access some application and I am an attacker, I'm sitting in between your network and trying to steal your session and see your account data, all those things must be done manually. There is no way a tool can do it. 54% applications, this is Gartner's data, by the way. Just to give an example, this is one of the session IDs typically found in great PHP applications. Insufficient. Same goes for network firewalls. Just open port, some service, some vulnerability, that's about it. But if you want to deep dive into that, you have to do it manually. Same goes for Android. So in case of Android, things are really pathetic as of today. There are hardly any tools out there. Whatever tools are there, those are, we have seen, those are Chinese tools. And those tools may not exactly be doing what they claim to be doing. Plus, those tools do carry their own virus for Android. So it's a big mess, there are hardly any tools. Whatever tools are there, they perform few checks here and there, but nothing to the root canal of the whole Android application. 90% of apps that we see in pen testing are having serious problems, which are to be dealt with only by an experienced human being. This is, I'm sure you know these terms, but just to get it in front of you, false positive is a problem that does not exist but is being reported as. False negative is quite opposite. It does exist, but it is not being reported, which is pretty serious. Now, just to set the premise, these are the benefits of manual testing as we are seeing every day. It mimics a real-life hacker. I was fortunate working for Wall Street. At one point, when Wall Street websites were being hacked every now and then, an unprecedented move was done by my employer, which was Merrill Lynch. What they did was they contacted FBI and they got hold of real-life hackers who were caught and were told to behave. What happened was, I was supposed to work with them, which I did. I was pretty fortunate about it. There is one thing I learned from them. Many hackers, and they were not lying about it, they had no clue about the tools which are out there in the market in those days. Because the hackers, the real life hackers, are so manual. They are doing things manually, so much so that they write their own scripts and make things happen. Just to make the point, if we are supposed to do vulnerability assessment, penetration testing, there is no way we can rely on tools at all. We have to go way beyond that, which is nothing but the manual testing approach. Of course, brings a great amount of accuracy, provides evidence, most importantly, no false positive, because then you're actually doing it and making sure you're seeing is nothing but a vulnerability or not a vulnerability. So not just no false positive, it also takes care of the false negatives. And you can actually go to the root of the security problems if those are reoccurring. If it is a design issue, you can capture that. Couple of myths, there are so many, but when we talk to our customers, there are two myths which I want to present here so that, this, whatever I told you just now, is really embossed in your minds. The first one is very typical. We have spent 8 lakhs on Acunetics or Nessus or some other tool, so we have a good grip on vulnerability. We don't think we have to go all the way around. Unfortunately, whenever somebody said that, we showed them with manual results, the number of vulnerabilities that are found are way beyond what even the tool can do. So we tell them your tool is only scratching the surface. Some IT heads they're vigilant. They really want to get their product to a great level in terms of being secure. So what they end up doing is they get a lot of budget and they invest in multiple tools, open source as well as commercial. That stems out in the second myth, that we use all possible tools, so we are fine. Again, this is the message we give them. Maybe you are still just swimming. What you need is a scuba diving, which is achieved only by manual penetration testing. This is my last slide. Please bear with me. These are the real facts stemming out of our experience. More than 80% software product companies still, even in Pune, Mumbai, even in US, I would say, they use only tools, which is quite unfortunate. They don't know what they're doing. And almost all commercial tools we have seen, they report SQL injection, which is the biggest problem. 78% of web applications in the world, they do have some or other form of SQL injection. This is official Gartner data for 2015. Unfortunately, despite of that, still all the tools, they report it as a false positive. This is very unfortunate. So many companies, they end up spending huge amount of time in dealing with something which is not there. And the real sad story is they don't spend any amount of time to deal with something which is actually underlying. And lastly, only 5% of serious vulnerabilities are found by tools. That's it. I'll take questions.
So one of the scenario that I came across is hackers create a new websites. I use HDFC Bank net banking. So they have one additional validation at their homepage. They ask you to select one image. So what kind of vulnerability is this, and how banks are prepared to take care of these kind of challenges?
Excellent. Thank you. Good question. There are two problems here. First of all, if hacker is capable of creating a replica of, say, HDFC net banking website, the real problem is not the image or anything. The real problem is they are able to lure the customers of HDFC away from the real HDFC website to this phishing website. That's where the problem is. Unfortunately, for phishing, there is no solution, because ideally what should happen is if you get something in an email and as a link to click, you should not click. As simple as that. People end up doing it. Now, let's see if you're talking about some image part which is on the real legitimate HDFC website. We have seen that earlier it used to be just a CAPTCHA. Now you need to remember your image that you configured. That's very good. The real problem is how you're going to submit that form, from HTTP form, from the browser all the way to the server. How securely it is being done and whether it can be bypassed or not is something that needs to be looked into. Talking about HDFC, it is secure as of today.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Just a small question here in center.
Sorry, yeah.
Yeah. So in terms of vulnerability, I mean, do you suggest or support using open source tool considering all these challenges?
Your question is?
On the open source tool, I mean,
Okay, yes. Well, you should not use tools, as I mentioned. But it doesn't mean I'm undermining the importance of tools. No, don't take me wrong on that. Tools are important, but those are important only where the cascaded intelligence is not required. It is about just scanning. Yes, you can use tools. Now to answer your question, I have seen open source tools work way better than commercial tools. And I believe the reason is because people keep on contributing. And the scripts keep on, getting matured every now and then. Whereas for commercial tools, only their own little research team is the one who is going to contribute, which may or may not be, adequate. So in past 10, 12 years, I'm seeing open source tools, they work really better than commercial ones.
May I have one last question, please?
Hello. I just want to know how much is the government doing around the ethical hacking space to help its citizens are actually safe?
Not
Do you have
much.
any official government figures or any place where we can?
Well, yes and no. Not much is being done, but at least what I have been seeing, since Modi government came in, a lot of importance is being given to all the aspects of cybersecurity. What was happening earlier was everyone knew cybersecurity as just cyber forensics, meaning some guy wrote something bad about some lady on Facebook. And this was the only context they were going round and round about. The real problem is critical infrastructure and banking industry. And I don't know about whole country, there is no statistics, but I can assure you, within Maharashtra, there is a lot being done by government, especially if you look at what NASSCOM is doing. In past 2 years, things have drastically changed. So I'm myself very positive about this whole thing. And it is needed, as you can see, because quite recently 32 lakhs of debit cards were in big trouble. So somebody is doing something and something needs to be done, yes. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Prashant Phatak.
Thank you very much.
May I invite Mr. Amit Vaidya, Practice Manager, Testing Services, TTS Digital Transformation, KPIT comments, to kindly felicitate Mr. Prashant Phatak, CEO, Valency Networks.
Yes, I want to ask one last question. I was not given the opportunity, so I thought it's a good opportunity. So we just, had the news day before yesterday, breaking news about the physical currency for 500 rupees and 1000 rupees. That will not be, the same now. It will be changed. So this is going to actually change the entire paradigm, the way we look at money in India. It's going to change the way people are going to do the transactions right from the grassroots level. People will feel the need of having debit cards, or credit cards, or things like Paytm. So there is a expectation and immediate surge of increase in the mobile applications. So and this is, I think, going to have a direct impact on the security. So on one side we are curbing the black money, etc. But on the other side, we are actually opening a plethora of problems. As you rightly said, with the Android platform, the tools itself are having, viruses. So what is your view on this new, way of transactions from a security perspective?
Uh, this is working, right? Okay. So, good question, Amit. Very good point. We had been. I'll use this. So, Amit, thank you. We had been discussing this within my company and also with quite a few stalwarts. There is one element which is still missing, which I don't know if government is going to look at some point. Almost all the mobile applications of new age, there is one currency which is Bitcoin, which is not being taken into account. So today you can play a game and earn Bitcoins, and you don't need physical currency or 500 bill or anything. You can just buy something from over there. So my fear is there are chances Bitcoin itself will be getting benefited out of this. And then how to gain some sort of control on this? As of today, the answer is not known at all. But this will definitely result, I mean, the move that happened a couple of days back, I'm pretty sure hacking into credit cards, debit cards, as well as a mobile application which is acting on your device as a wallet application, they are going to get into bigger trouble than before, because obviously the focus is going to shift on those regards. Yes.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Prashant. That was a really nice session. On behalf of StepIn, I would like to felicitate you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Prashant Phatak. Thank you so much, Mr. Amit Vaidya.